We live in a time where you can spend your whole day looking at somebody else's life, their wins, their progress, their glow ups, their platforms. It's all in your face. It's so easy to get caught up in monitoring who's doing what, who's leveling up, who's posting about another open door. And before you know it, you've spent more energy watching their life than watering your own. That's the trap. That's where the enemy gets us distracted by someone else's growth while ours sits unattended, withering from neglect. God didn't call you to be a spectator. You weren't created to sit in the stands and watch other people play the game of purpose. You've got your own assignment. You've got your own lane. But if you're always watching theirs, if you're always counting their steps, you'll lose your place and miss what God is trying to do in you. Some of us are spiritually tired, not because we're doing too much, because we're focused on too much that has nothing to do with us. You're drained not from your own work, but from envying someone else's fruit. And the thing is, their fruit should never make you feel small. It should remind you that growth is possible, that breakthrough happens, that God really does move in people's lives. But what the enemy will do is twist that evidence into insecurity. Instead of letting it inspire you, you start to let it define you. You start saying things like, why not me? When is it my turn? What am I doing wrong? And now, instead of running your race with grace, you're tripping over comparison and calling it ambition. Here's the truth. Just because someone else is shining doesn't mean you're in the dark. Just because someone else is building doesn't mean there's no room for what you're called to construct. But you won't know that if you're not looking inward. If you don't focus on your own soul, your own calling, your own character, you'll end up imitating people who were never meant to be your blueprint. And imitation might look successful for a while, but it won't sustain you. You can only keep pretending for so long before it gets exhausting. What God put in you wasn't meant to be copied. It was meant to be cultivated. You've got to be willing to step back and ask, am I more interested in watching their growth than investing in my own? Because the answer to that question could shift everything. It could expose where your priorities are. It could reveal how much time you've been giving to the surface instead of the root. You can't expect fruit if you never plant, and you can't harvest what you've been too distracted to water. So take your eyes off the noise for a moment, off the metrics, off the platforms, off the constant feed of everyone else's updates, and get quiet enough to hear what God is asking of you, what he wants to heal in you, what he wants to stretch, refine, and okay me and grow in your spirit. Because when you focus on that, when you focus on you, you'll start to realize you were never behind. You were just busy watching the wrong field. Your life matters too much to live distracted. Your purpose is too sacred to waste in someone else's comment section. Turn your gaze back to your own growth. It's time to water what's within. Healing is one of those things people like to talk about like it's a vibe. Like you light a candle, take a walk, read a quote, and suddenly you're whole. But the truth is, healing is not aesthetic. It's not soft music and instant peace. It's gritty, it's vulnerable, it's uncomfortable, and it's work. Real healing takes intentional effort. It doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't stick if you're just trying to rush through it so you can look healed instead of being healed. Some of us say we want to grow, we want to be better, we want to be whole. But when it's time to sit with the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding, we ghost, we leave the table, we pray for deliverance, but we don't want the discipline that comes with staying in the process. We want breakthrough, but we want it without exposure. We want freedom, but we don't want to let go of the pain we've made our personality. That's not healing, that's hiding, that's survival, not transformation. You have to do the work. You've got to dig into the places you've sealed shut. You've got to ask God to pull up the roots, not just trim the weeds. You've got to be honest about the bitter you've normalized, the anger you've baptized, the dysfunction you've decorated. Because if you don't face it, you're going to keep bleeding on things that never cut you. You'll keep building walls and calling it boundaries. You'll keep isolating and calling it independence. And eventually you'll wake up and realize you've dressed your wounds with performance instead of letting God heal them with truth. And yes, doing the work means you'll cry sometimes. It means you'll wrestle with old pain that you thought you buried. It means you'll have to forgive people who never said sorry. But healing isn't for them. It's for you. It's so you can move forward without dragging old chains into new seasons. It's so you can love without fear, speak without shame, live without pretending. You can't heal from what you're still hiding. You can't conquer what you won't confront. So ask yourself, am I willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of being whole? Am I willing to let God do surgery on my soul, even if it means losing what I once used to survive? Because survival and healing are not the same thing. Says, let me get through. Healing says, let me become. And if you keep choosing survival, you'll live beneath your calling. You'll settle for coping when you were created for freedom. Focus yourself doesn't just mean pampering. It means confronting. It means breaking up with lies that have lived in your mind for years. It means refusing to let trauma become your identity. And it means walking in the truth, even when it's hard, even when it's lonely, even when no one claps for the quiet progress you're making. Let God get into the deep places. Let him peel back what you've layered with the stranglets. Let him break the cycle. And while you're at it, remind yourself daily healing is holy. It's not weakness to need it. It's strength to seek it. Yeah. It's strength to stay in the process. So don't quit because it hurts. Keep going because it heals. Peace is not passive. It's not this delicate, fragile thing that just floats into your life when everything is quiet and soft. No, peace has to be protected, fought for, guarded like it's the most precious thing in your life, because it is. And the moment you start focusing on yourself, really paying attention to what feeds your soul and what drains it, you realize how many places your energy has been leaking, how many people you've let disturb your just because you didn't think you were allowed to protect your peace. We've been taught to be available, to be nice, to be accessible. But let me tell you, peace will never survive in a life where boundaries are treated like a suggestion. Some of y'all are tired, not because you're doing too much, but because you keep opening the door to people who carry chows. You keep replying to texts that should have been left on read. You keep engaging in arguments that aren't even about truth. They're about control, ego, noise. And while you're fighting battles that don't belong to you, your peace is sitting somewhere in the background, waiting to be picked back up. There's a difference between being at peace and keeping the peace. Keeping the peace often means you're swallowing truth just to avoid tension. But real peace, it doesn't require you to be silent. It requires you to be honest, to say no when it's a no, to walk away when staying is self-betrayal, to rest when culture tells you to hustle harder. Peace is an act of resistance in a world that profits from your exhaustion. And it's not just about what you say no to. It's about what you say yes to. Say yes to stillness. Say yes to time with God where your phone is off and your heart is open. Say yes to joy that doesn't need validation. Say yes to silence that doesn't feel empty, but full. When you protect your peace, you stop letting the outside world dictate your inner world. You stop reacting to every little thing. You stop giving access to people who have proved they don't know how to handle your heart. Some folks only come around when they need something. They only call when they want to drain or distract. But when you start focusing on yourself, you learn to ask, does this relationship add to me or subtract from me? Does this conversation lift me up or leave me heavy? You begin to understand that loving people doesn't mean letting them trample over your sanity. You can love someone and still not allow them to disturb the atmosphere God is building in your life. Peace isn't selfish, it's spiritual. It's sacred, and sometimes it's quiet. But don't confuse quiet with weak. The most powerful version of you might not be the loudest, the busiest, or the most visible. It might be the version of you that's fully grounded, unbothered, full of discernment and rest, knowing who you are and whose you are. That version of you will confuse people who expect you to always be available, always reactive, always drained, but you don't owe them your peace. Focus on yourself enough to know when to step away, when to let go, when to stop explaining. Not everyone deserves access to your mind, your time, or your peace. And when you start living like peace is a boundary, not a bonus, you'll stop apologizing for guarding it with everything you've got. We live in a world that glorifies the image, the highlight reel, the version of yourself that performs well in public while crumbling in private. And the pressure to be everything for everybody can make you forget to check in with yourself. But when you really start to focus on you, like truly sit with who you are beyond the filters and expectations, You realize something powerful. You can't fake becoming whole. You can't pretend your way into purpose. At some point, you have to do the internal inventory and ask, am I living honestly or am I living for applause? You can only run from yourself for so long. Eventually, the noise dies down, the lights go off, and you're left alone with your thoughts, your fears, your wounds. And that's when it gets real, not in the crowd, but in the quiet. That's when the masks start to feel heavy and the roles you've been playing lose their comfort. That's when you have to stop performing and start confronting, because you can't be delivered from what you keep defending. And the moment you start justifying dysfunction so you don't have to change is the moment you stay stuck. Focusing on yourself isn't about becoming self-centered. It's about becoming self-aware. It's about holding up a mirror, not to criticize, but to see clearly, because you can't grow what you won't acknowledge. You can't heal what you won't name. And you can't break chains you're still calling jewelry. Right. So much of our struggle is rooted in avoidance. We numb, we scroll, we stay busy. But growth requires stillness. It requires silence. It requires asking hard questions and waiting for honest answers, even when they're not flattering. And here's the truth. Everybody wants elevation, but not everybody wants the excavation. Not everybody wants to deep and see what's really underneath the surface. But the parts of you that feel too messy, too raw, too complicated, those are the parts God wants to touch. That's where transformation starts, not on the stage, but in the secret place, in the moments when nobody is watching and you choose to surrender instead of strive. You choose authenticity over applause. You choose honesty over image. And when you do that, you start making different decisions. You start walking with discernment. You stop chasing people who don't value you because you value yourself too much to keep shrinking. You stop settling because you understand your worth isn't up for negotiation. You start surrounding yourself with people who see the real you and don't flinch, who speak to your purpose, not just your personality, who challenge your comfort and celebrate your growth, even when it's slow and unseen. Focusing on yourself isn't a season of isolation. It's a season of alignment. It's where clarity comes, where peace settles, where you begin to see who you are when you're not performing, not proving, not pretending. And from that place, you love differently. You love differently. You show up differently. You're no longer looking for validation from places that can't even hold the weight of your identity. Because the truth is, when you finally decide to stop running and start reflecting, when you stop editing yourself to be accepted, when you stop seeking outside affirmation for internal work, you walk lighter, you breathe deeper, you speak truth with boldness and walk in purpose with confidence, not because you're perfect, but you're present, fully here, fully honest, fully surrendered. And that kind of focus, that kind of wholeness, that's when the real transformation begins.